disinformation. Without much ado, I'm going to allow the Chief Electoral Officer, Mr. Simon Mabolo, just to take us through the first part of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Kate, Vice Chairperson, Commissioner Lau, my colleagues from the IEC, the Director of Media Monitoring Africa, Mr. William Bird, members of the media, and ladies and gentlemen. The Electoral Commission, in conjunction with Media Monitoring Africa, along with other partners, are pleased to announce the launch today of an innovative project which we hope will help combat the scourge of disinformation intended to unfairly influence the outcome of the elections. There are three key initiatives related to this. The first part of this project is to enhance the education of all stakeholders around disinformation on digital platforms. This includes highlighting the risks and dangers of intentionally false and misrepresented information for free and fair elections, and in raising the consciousness of the public in relation to this problem. It also includes providing tools and assistance to voters, the media, political parties, candidates, and others in helping identify false information and knowing what steps to take to query and lodge complaints regarding potential disinformation. The second key part of this project is to provide an online platform which will allow members of the public, members of the media, political parties, candidates, and other interest groups to quickly and easily report to the Electoral Commission potential disinformation which may be in breach of the Electoral Code of Conduct, and then allow the Electoral Commission to rapidly and efficiently deal with such complaints. The third aspect of today's initiative is a pilot political advertisement repository where political parties can post copies of their official campaign material to help with the identification of false messaging. Ladies and gentlemen, the dangers of false and disinformation have long been recognized within South Africa's electoral system and legislative framework. Both the sections on prohibited conduct in the Electoral Act as well as the Electoral Code of Conduct prohibit false information. The Code of Conduct specifically prohibits the use of any language that may provoke violence and intimidation, any discrimination on the grounds of race, ethnicity, gender, class, or religion, the publication of any false or defamatory allegation in respect of any other party or candidate. The prohibited conduct in the Electoral Act also prohibits any person from publishing any false information with the intention of disrupting or preventing an election, creating hostility or fear in order to influence the conduct of an election, and influencing the conduct or outcome of an election. In seeking to give real meaning to these provisions, the Electoral Commission has been engaging with a range of stakeholders to see how we can simplify and accelerate the process of identifying and dealing with alleged breaches of the code regarding false information, specifically on digital platforms. I am pleased to report that in engaging with political parties within the National Party Liaison Committee around the issues of digital information and this initiative, we have received overwhelming support for this project from all parties. No party wishes to see its campaign messages distorted or abused. In this regard, They have welcomed the idea of a political advertisement repository where any member of the public can check for themselves the veracity of campaign material and quickly determine whether a poster or pamphlet has been photoshopped or otherwise altered to undermine the party. Equally, they have welcomed the establishment of an online platform where they and other interested stakeholders can alert the Electoral Commission quickly and easily to instances of abuse via social media. Importantly, the online platform will allow complaints to include links to digital platforms which will help retain their footprint to more easily allow an investigation into the source of any disinformation. So how will this work? Mr. William Baird from Media Monitoring Africa will shortly give you a demonstration of the online platform, but let me give you a brief glimpse of how things will work behind the scenes. Once a complaint is submitted online, it will be referred to a panel of experts under the umbrella of the Electoral Commission's Office for Electoral Offences. This panel, which has expertise in media law, social media, and disinformation, will assess and investigate the complaint and make a recommendation to the Commission for consideration. The Commission will then make a determination on any possible further action, and such could include the following: requesting the social media platform to remove the offensive or inaccurate material, requesting political parties or candidates to clarify the information, issuing media statements to alert the public and correct the disinformation, referring the matter for criminal or civil action if necessary. The site will contain a database of all complaints received and their progress so that other social media users can see if an issue has already been dealt with and what the outcome was. Ladies and gentlemen, social media is the new frontier of communication, education, and deception. We are not arrogant enough to believe we have found a solution to the problem of disinformation on social media. But we believe that this pilot project will help us and perhaps others around the world to begin to fight back against those who seek to undermine our hard-won democracy behind the anonymity and license of social media. We hope you will join us in this quest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CEO. Before William Baird does the presentation, I'm going to call upon Commissioner Love, the Vice Chairperson of the Electoral Commission, to provide additional insight onto this project. Commissioner Love.
Thank you. Thank you, Program Director and CEO. And we look forward to the presentation of William Baird, but also in particular, again, thanks to members of the media for responding to this. I think all of us are aware that social media has penetrated quite extensively within South Africa and is continuing to grow at a rapid rate. At the moment, the survey information that we have tells us that Facebook has about 21 million users in South Africa, which is about 38% of our population. YouTube involves about 9 million users, Twitter 8.3 million, LinkedIn 6.8 million, and Instagram 6.6. So you can see that this whole area of digital information is something that we all have to be very involved in to ensure that it does what in many ways and many optimistic ideas it has the potential to do, to be able to very rapidly provide information in a manner that can disseminate it very widely and at relatively low cost. But of course, within that opportunity of rapid communication and wide dissemination lie all of its potential downsides for purposes of free and fair elections and for purposes of disseminating disinformation. And so it is these risks that we are trying very hard to manage. And it's probably very appropriate that we do so on a day like today, which is probably the one day of the year that most South Africans, without our prompting, give some very careful thought to reports that they receive. It's a day like today that we wonder whether some of our sport teams will indeed be wearing zebra T-shirts or not. It's a day like today that we listen to friends who tell us something and we wonder how accurate that is. And for fools who don't think about the accuracy of the media, today has been dubbed April Fool's Day. But what we are saying to everybody in South Africa is that it's in fact for us not to be the fools. It's for us to really think very carefully about the information we receive and to recognize that there's a lot of disinformation that can really undermine the democracy that we've sought so hard to secure within our country. So around the world, we have been seeing a great deal of activity with regard to digital media. And we've seen some of the social media platforms take action directly themselves, fact-checking processes and controls, just by way of examples. But when it comes to electoral management bodies, all of us are exploring ways to deal with these challenges as much as we recognize the opportunities that they include. And for this reason, as the CEO has said, this really does constitute a possibility for some groundbreaking work for all electoral management bodies around the world. South Africa is taking on the challenge in a way that we are attempting to find lessons for ourselves, to find a better understanding, but equally to be able to give an opportunity to our colleagues in other electoral management bodies some insights about successes and strengths and weaknesses of the solution that we are looking at. We have been engaging with a number of stakeholders, and these include some of the social media platforms themselves since the second half of last year. These include Facebook, Twitter, and Google. And a number of these have interacted, as the CEO has mentioned, also with political parties to make them aware of some of the opportunities, some of the potential ways in which political parties can use but also protect themselves from the abuse that sometimes is perpetrated via digital media. We've also engaged quite widely with civil society groups, and in particular, we're very pleased to have been able to work closely in this regard with Media Monitoring Africa. And we have also engaged quite widely with members of the media themselves, in particular, but not exclusively, the South African National Editors Forum and the Press Council. So our launch today of this exciting initiative with the three elements that you've seen, we hope is something that you will help us on this journey of making sure that we use this platform to defend our democracy and safeguard our electoral process. Thank you again, all of you, for being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Love and CEO. I'm going to open the floor for questions. Introduce yourself and your media house, and then we'll take the first round of questions.
Okay, do you not want the...
Oh, William, sorry, by the way, sorry about that. William, if you are ready, my apologies.
Okay. Good morning. We're just waiting to see if we can get this thing to actually show, because it's a bit hard to do a presentation when you're doing it to a blue screen. Because you might then suspect that we're guilty ourselves of spreading some disinformation. So that said before, forgive me, I'm not used to being on such auspicious panels. So Commissioner Love, CEO, and Kate and friends that are around the table. This is a significant day actually, because I don't think we sufficiently give enough credit to our bodies when they do things that are really groundbreaking. And I know that the IEC is going to face a lot of queries and a lot of pressure from all manner of places and people and parties, etc., and interest groups. But I think that we need to just take time to appreciate the fact that for all that this is a new and innovative thing, our Electoral Commission in South Africa has said this is an important issue and we need to grab it and see what we can do about it. It really is an incredible achievement that one of our core democratic institutions is ready to engage and lead us into a future when, if you look at so many of our others, I don't think that they are anywhere nearly as brave and committed. So it is a wonderful thing. That said, unless we get action in the next few seconds, I'm going to have to speak through this because I'm aware that time will otherwise be running out, because the people next to me have places to go and people to see. Well, there you go. I think they're going to try and connect it. Am I right? Okay. So I remain optimistic. So perhaps, Kate, you want to take some questions and then I go through it? So should we take questions and then I can give them a few minutes to do the
presentation?
Okay.
So that is one set of questions. William, consider.
Oh, I must come there. Oh,
Commissioner
sorry,
Lawson.
I'm a bit stupid.
Guys, we just setting, ordering ourselves properly.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
In the meantime, maybe William, oh, there we go. There we go.
Right.
There we go.
Let me push play.
Yeah.
Oh, look, someone's ringing one of the cell phones on this table. Should I answer and pretend I'm you?
Oh, yeah.
Hello? Yes, no, they're just busy. I'm kidding. I didn't really answer your phone. Whoever's phone this is, I didn't. But I was tempted to, I have to say. And I hope your recording device is still recording. So, again, thank you. So, Commissioner Love noted the fact that this is the 1st of April and the importance of actually considering what information you consume. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So it's important that we give a big thanks, and I did that in my brief intro, to the IEC. There are a number of critical people to this process, and I see this projector has gone. It's back again. But in particular, because they've just been remarkably open and engaging and responsive to what I think are really interesting ideas. And to institutions, those of you that work in your own newsrooms will know just how hard it is to get institutions to try new things. But so it makes it all the more incredible that we have a critical institution for democracy, and that they are so responsive and key to making sure that this thing is a success. Can we move to the next slide, please? So this is just about who we are, and I'm going to just skip that. We're about MMA. This will be shared with you on the WhatsApp groups that are there. Can we go to the next slide, please? We're there. Oh, whoops, backwards. Back one. So there are 3 things just to highlight again for the people in the room. So the one is the Digital Disinformation Complaints Committee that the IEC is running. Then the second is the Political Ad Repository. And the third then is helping deal with reporting of journalists who are being harassed. So if we move to the next slide, please. So if we look at it, it's PADRE. This is a bad acronym. In South Africa, we know we love acronyms. Stands for Political Ad Repository. And if you go to that web address, which is padre.org.za, next slide, please, you will see a homepage that looks a little bit like this. Now, because I'm not doing a live demo of this, if you do go there, once the political parties have started to sign up and they've uploaded their content, you will be able to go there. Any member of the public can go and you can search and you can see what the adverts are. You will be able to search by party or also by keyword. So it should make your lives as journalists a lot easier as well, because if you get something on WhatsApp or any social media platform, you can quickly and easily see whether this is a real or rubbish advert from any of the major political parties, or indeed any of our 49, 48 parties. Next slide, please. What I'm going to focus on now, because it's pretty spectacular for South Africa, I think, is this Real 411. And there's the address. It's real411.org.za. A lot of you in the room are a lot younger than I am, so I suspect you'll know what Real 411 is. It stands for real information. It's short term or slang, I guess, in colloquial language for it. And again, just to run through how it'll work. Next slide, please. Thank you. So people will submit a complaint via this website. It's open to the public. Any member of the public, including media, whoever they are, will submit a complaint. It's just through a short form, and I'll show you how that works in a moment. The IEC's directed, and it goes directly to the IEC's Directorate of Electoral Offences, and they will review it with the support and assistance of some experts. Those reviews are based on the guidelines, and they will make recommendations to the electoral commissioners. Once they've done that, the electoral commissioners themselves will be in a position to make a ruling on the instance that they see. In other words, they get a complaint, they look at it, the Directorate of Electoral Offences looks at it, and it then goes to a commissioner, and that commissioner will then review it and determine, yes, I think this is a breach, etc., or no, it isn't, and they will then communicate that decision to the people involved. So it means that as a member of the public, if you submit a complaint, you'll be able to know it's been received, and you'll see where it is at each stage of the process. So you can log in with your unique reference number and see where things are going and where they are. And again, if you're unhappy with that, there is a form of redress. Why? Because this is a democratic institution, the IEC. It is not an unaccountable entity that has no legitimacy in South Africa. Next slide, please. So if you go to the homepage, you will find this, and you'll see the IEC's fabulous XA logo, and you will see a homepage that is full of wonderful information, and you'll see there that this is where you also can go and report disinformation. May I have the next slide, please? One of those things is important. It's about reporting online harassment against journalists. It's a short form. It's being done together with the South African National Editors Forum and the Committee for Protection of Journalists, CPJ, which is a global body. Next slide, please. The other one that's there is if you choose to report election disinformation, that's the slide that you will see. And once you've submitted a complaint, next slide, please, you'll get a form that looks like this that outlines where you are. There's a nice color coding system so you can see where things are received, if they've been assessed, etc., and at each stage. What I'm going to do now is just show you a quick video of that. So if you can go to the next slide and press play on the video. So here you go. When you log on or when you visit the site, this is what you'll see. Is the video playing? Oh, it's not playing because we've switched formats. Well, that's massively suboptimal, because this is about one of the second most exciting periods of my life. We're ready to show you a video with inside a presentation, and it didn't work. I mean, of course, if technology had worked, I would have been happy and delighted. So what I want to point out through this process, though, is that, and it will be shared on WhatsApp groups, etc., is that it really does take just a few minutes to collect the information. People that submit a complaint, your anonymity is guaranteed. No one gets to see those names, so it's not like there's any risk in reporting something. It gets kept somewhere securely. It's in line with the relevant terms and conditions required by GDPR, etc., etc. So there's significant levels of privacy and data protection and all of those other wonderfully good things that are kept there. And once you submit a complaint, you'll get immediately a notification and a very long ID code that says this is your unique number. You can use that to search for your complaint as you go through the process. Next slide, please. So in addition to that, to help the members of the public do this, As MMA, we've got an app that you can download called Rover that will help you spot real over rubbish news and also help report these things. Then there's the No News extension, the 411 complaint system, the political ad repository, and then protection of journalists. And if you go to the next slide, it says thanks and questions. And the thanks really need to just go again to, there's been a team of just under 30 people that have made this a reality today. Our legal expert, one of our legal eagles, is sitting in the corner next to Marco if we've got specific questions around the legality of that, and other members of the team who have been completely brilliant. And thank you very much to all of you for being here, to Sarah and Marco and Kate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, William. I'm going to open the floor for questions and issues of clarity on our. I like what you said. This is one of our greatest innovations for these elections. May I please open the floor for questions? Introduce yourself and the media house you come from, and then you raise the question. I'm taking the first round of questions. I've got one, the second. Okay, I've got two. What are you next to me? Okay, let's start with that.
My name is Sitekani Magwetz. I'm at the SABC. I see you say you've seen a notable rise in disinformation globally. Building up to these coming elections, have you seen disinformation being spread in the country, and are there any examples that you can give? And then secondly, I just would like some clarity on the Padre website. How it's going to work. Will political parties need to continuously update the campaign advert material? How's it going to work?
Okay, it's Noel from Rwanda. Mr. Beck, I just want clarity on the word misinformation itself. I mean, there are different definitions of misinformation. If I, as political party A, an article is written in the Citizen about something, and then I can submit that as misinformation. How is the panel going to deal with the nitty-gritty of that part? And secondly, it's easy to see if a picture is doctrine. I mean, if you take it onto Photoshop and so on. But now, content is such a huge. I mean, writing an article might come across as misinformation at later stages. I mean, we've seen with the recent articles that were written in credible newspapers, and later they were found out as misinformation. So I just want to also understand the timeline. If I report something today as misinformation and the elections pass, and then will there still be other penalties afterwards? If I'm a politician, I post an ANC picture, say something after the elections, will there be I don't know, penalties at the end, or is it just before the elections?
I believe is sort of getting into my question, because I wanted to know firstly the turnaround time when it comes to the investigations and the findings when it comes to the complaints, considering that we're so close to the elections. And I also wanted to know in terms of launching this project. It's a great project, but will it be a project that will just be for these elections, or will this project continue on for the IEC? And the kind of penalties that, for instance, political parties will enjoy. For instance, if a poster is being taken off, we see a poster being taken off by EFF supporters of ANC posters. Sorry, ANC posters being taken off by EFF supporters. I just wanted to know who would be penalized in that kind of environment.
Maybe just to give a start, and then colleagues will continue. But I think firstly, in terms of disinformation, I think that we recognize in defining it, which I will do shortly, the fact that the idea of dealing with disinformation is not to attempt to curtail freedom of expression, freedom of opinion, which means that you are continuously looking at a balancing act. Having said that, disinformation is false, inaccurate information that is designed to intentionally cause harm. So if I take somebody's words and I then toy around with them and pretend that they've said something that they haven't said in an intentional way, that is different from having an opinion about what he or she has said. So, and that opinion later on, as you've indicated, might prove to be a wrong opinion when I learn further facts. But the idea would be the intentional attempt to abuse that information to disinform people. I think the second thing is in relation to the uploading of political party adverts. Yes, political parties will and have in principle understood the value of uploading those adverts themselves, because they recognize, and there have been instances even for these elections, where political party material has been doctored and has been claimed to be in the name of a particular party, where that party has disclaimed any knowledge of the information. So I think that, yes, it will require a commitment from them. I don't know that it will be a daily kind of commitment, but it will be a commitment that will be commensurate with the kind of political party adverts that they create. Obviously, some of those adverts will then be replayed in different formats, but you'll still have the core advert that will then be uploaded. With regard to issues to do with turnaround times and so on, I think that others will add in there. But I think that the one point that I wanted to mention, which is around the question of these elections. At this stage, we all see the importance of what we're trying to do. The idea that has been communicated, as the CEO mentioned, has been discussed with political parties who recognize and have embraced what we are attempting to do. But precisely because we are wanting to learn from it before we promulgate, enact, put into place a long-term initiative, is what we're saying is, after these elections, that kind of assessment as to how do we enrich the experience that we've gained and how do we ensure that we put in place something on an ongoing basis that we'll be able to determine through that evaluation. CEO, maybe on the question of complaints and time frames, you would be better placed.
If the matter that is complained of is on a social media platform, there's a digital complaints committee that the matter will be referred to, which will meet and consider that and then advise the Commission. It may be that they will request the platform to remove. It may be that the matter is so serious that it requires referral to the Electoral Court. In the event it's just a request to remove, to take down, we anticipate that not taking more than 3 days. But if the matter goes to the Electoral Court by way of a Section 95 referral, then affidavits must be drawn up, the papers must be served on the offending party, the court has to establish a date by when a hearing will be held and so on. So normal judicial processes have to unfold, and those are often not within our purview of control. they're dependent on how fast the court can move. Obviously, the court is acutely conscious of the need to dispose of matters expeditiously, and it's our hope that they will, in this election period, deal with matters and have a quicker turnaround. The Commissioner Love has dealt with the issue. It's a pilot. It's a pilot project for this election. There are lessons that we want to derive from this exercise, and those lessons will inform whether we institutionalize this into a code that we can prescribe as the Commission, and if we have to, what provisions should it have and not have. So it's an opportunity for deep learning experiences which can inform our regulatory framework going forward.
Thank you so much. If there are no other issues, let me do the last round of questions before I wrap up. All right, this way, let me start this side and followed by her. And then I've got two other hands this side. And then the last one in the center. All right. Ceci, let's start with you.
The gentleman from Media Management did tell us that there were 30 personnel that they came in to start this project. I just wanted to know how much was it in terms of expense for the IEC and in terms of manpower.
I had a second hand in the middle.
Thank you. If I may be allowed to ask a general question, we are at a point where we've already seen some members of the media being intimidated by political parties, and one case in point is that of Karina. Just a sense of where things are and what the IEC is doing about it, because understandably there is a case that has been filed.
Hi, hello. I'm Leonard from the Library. I just wanted to ask, what capacity does MMA and the IEC have in terms of monitoring the deliberate posting or sharing of information that is deliberately false? And also, what would happen in the instance where someone shares a piece of information without checking if the information is true or false? Who will then be held accountable, and how will they trace the whereabouts of, where that information came from?
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Mulukumlo from EMCA. I just need clarity. When you say this is a pilot project, just outline it for us in simple terms. What are the terms and conditions? And when it comes to, I understand that you're launching it today, but are you currently investigating any message that seeks to spread misinformation? And the last question relates to satire. How are you going to strike a balance wherein somebody is expressing themselves artistically using satirical work to a point where you will not be seen to trying to suppress people from expressing themselves?
Yes, that.
It's now again. I don't know if William can answer this, but I just wanted to understand this website. Who's the target market? Are we going to see it in indigenous languages, or will it just address the middle class? Are we also going to see it in other different platforms? Is it an app? Is it accessible? But my question also, I think my colleagues have highlighted or pointed towards it. How much did this project cost? Couldn't that money have gone to actually printing pamphlets in Sesotho or Setswana to educate people in rural areas? This is my question.
Thank you. Thanks, Kate. I mean, I'm the only question I'm going to pick up on initially, because I think the CEO will deal with many others as well as William, is the issue about satire. I think that we're very clear within the Commission that our job is to deal with issues that impact directly on elections. There are decisions both of our Constitutional Court and from within the Commission that when it comes to looking at what would be defined as, if you like, hate speech, which is the sort of issue that you're raising when you talk about satire, is not within the direct purview of the Electoral Commission. This is something a court will decide on. To the extent that a person pretends that it's satire, so for example, masquerades in a way that could really be understood as being somebody who is speaking on radio and pretends to be a well-known politician, right? And for whatever reason, people on the radio don't reveal it or don't know. Maybe they do think it's a particular person and says, I am so-and-so, and the person is not so-and-so. That's a different thing from imitating the voice of somebody who is in the form of satire. But as to whether either instance would involve something that you could call deliberate kind of hate speech or something like that, that's not something that we would decide on. If it obstructed the election, it gave incorrect information about what the political party was actually saying and revealing to its potential voters, that would be something different. It's an area that we do need to navigate, but I hope that I've given you some of the baselines.
Okay, should I just address some of the others? So in terms of the cost of this, it's the IEC has not made any. This hasn't cost the IEC anything beyond the occasional cup of tea or coffee that they've given us when we come here for meetings, which I think is a reasonable expense. This is something that is being funded by donors both locally and internationally, which have been received through MMA. We're a registered non-profit, and we've been approaching donors to make this a reality. So the IEC hasn't spent any money on this at all. So I mean, I think I take the point about how they need to allocate their precious little funding, and I think that that's one of the reasons why, because of the nature of it being a pilot, we said we would try and source the funds to make sure that we could make it a reality. In terms of the monitoring question, obviously you can't monitor all social media. I mean, even as we know from the awful incident in New Zealand recently, Facebook has struggled to be able to monitor and take down all the incidents of videos there. So we can't claim, nor should we want to claim that we are monitoring. But what we are doing is working with the IEC and with the various social media platforms, that if there are any trends that we're starting to observe, they can act quickly on those. In partial answer to the other gent's question about if there's anything else currently being investigated, we know that we've already been seeing some and have had some requests where we've seen some tweets, for example, that have clearly been in violation of their guidelines, and they've been removed within a very short period of time by Twitter. So what happens? So it's not that we have any power to do that. It's that in and of ourselves, we've been able to do that as any other citizen would. What this does is it brings transparency and accountability, and within South Africa's legal framework, to that process, so that if people report through 411, it goes through the IEC, and their commissioners then make a ruling, and they can then ask for things to be taken down, which is yet another critical step in ensuring that the rights to freedom of expression and people voicing their opinion are protected. So it's very much something that, as an organization that supports media freedom and as an institution that supports it, it's been front and center of the concern to make sure that anything like this where you do seek to have some limitations are done within the boundaries of South Africa's constitutional framework. Oh, sorry, just before, the question of translation. At the moment, the platform itself is in English. We did look at seeing if we could try and launch it in all official languages, but that is a bridge too far for where we are currently. But we can say that if anyone submits a complaint in any of our official languages, that will be dealt with, and there are facilities to make sure that we allow for that, because of course we acknowledge fully that English is not the official language of the majority of people in South Africa. Sorry, CEO.
Okay. On the side of the IC, the staff commitment that we have deployed to this project, it's about 5 officials who have been working together with MMA and other partners to bring this to fruition. So that will continue. I think on the issue of do we have capacity, and I think William did deal with the matter. We don't, and we don't pretend that we want to monitor the entirety of social media. That's not the point of this exercise. So this will be a complaint initiated intervention through the platform. So we will deal with instances that are brought to us by way of complaints, and there is a process that we have outlined to deal with those, to deal with the complaints. Now, what are the terms and conditions? The terms are related to the 3 elements of the projects that we spoke about. Firstly, it's to enhance the education of all stakeholders around disinformation on digital platforms, to ensure that as many voters, political parties, and so on get to understand the disinformation, what it means, and what facilities exist to deal with it. This being one of them. And the second component of that is the online platform, which will allow members of the public to register their complaints and to have them dealt with expeditiously. And the third leg is this political parties advertisement repository, which we hope that it will also allow for members of the public to see what authentic advertisement material exists in respect of the various political parties, so that if campaign messages of various parties are distorted, there's a cross-reference point which can be utilized. So those are the 3 crucial terms of the project, and at the risk of repeating myself, we want to derive lessons that can inform improvements to our regulatory frameworks for the future. Now, the issue of Ms. Karima Brown, yes, the IC did receive a complaint, which we duly referred to our internal structure, the Office for Electoral Offences, and there's been a referral to Mr. Malema to ask for his side of the story, so to speak. Remember that one of the core elements of natural justice is that you've got to hear the other side to a dispute. So that was done. Mr. Malema has since finished the IC with his version, a version that has now been placed before Ms. Brown who has requested time until tomorrow to rebut or to make further submissions. After tomorrow, then the matter will be before the Commission to determine a way forward, this or the other way. So at this point, it will be counterproductive, I believe, to want to speculate on which direction the matter will go, except to say that the matter is at hand. You know, one of the parties has now requested time until tomorrow, and when the submissions are in tomorrow, they'll be analyzed and a determination made this or the other way.
Thank you so much, CEO. Monoga, I wanted to close. I can see your hand is scratching. What's happening? Okay, let's do follow-up.
Yes, because when my understanding of the pilot project is centered on experimentation, I just needed clarity as to whether during the campaign or as we're heading into the election, the possibility could be there that you realize that it's not working and you will stop you. But the second clarity that I'm seeking is when you say, Tatema Mabolo and Mr. Bed, when you said you don't have, it's impossible to monitor every social media post. And then it raises the question as to whether you admit already that this initiative will not even achieve the intended purposes. My understanding already is that you will possibly be focusing on people who are in the, say, politicians or other influencers, but somebody who is on Facebook, who's misinformation, who's spreading misinformation in some rural province who you will never know about that. And the other question relating to satirical work is I was more about, say, just missing your Evita visit and go, because that's an artistic expression, whether you're going to also zoom into such people.
Chester Missing and Evita Bezuidenhout I've not encountered a situation where in either case I'm aware of any attempt at disinformation, so I would not be aware of how they would be implicated or involved in something like this. But the second thing that I would say is that we're talking about a social media platform here. Obviously, if somebody does pick up, whether it's with those two artists or any other individual, an issue around problems, one question, I think it was from yourself, from ENCA, mentioned the issue about taking down posters. These are things that follow the normal complaints procedure. They don't. They wouldn't come via a digital platform. So I hope that that clarifies that question. I think the other things are from yourself.
The pilot project is in relation with the 2019 national and provincial elections. So there is no possibility that we will halfway through this say, no, we are ceasing. We'll evaluate after the elections and determine for ourselves what lessons we can derive and what improvements therefore are necessary in our regulatory framework for the future. So it's a pilot in that sense, in a sense that it is not as yet grounded in a legal instrument. The lessons that we derive from here will inform how we fortify the legal instruments. Now, Commissioner Love gave you an indication that, for instance, there are 21 million Facebook users in South Africa, 21 million. Now, the intention is not to monitor every single post, tweet that is made. We will never have a capacity to do that. The intention is to deal with posts and tweets and related things on social media that are intentional false statement intended to influence the outcome of an election. That's what our interest is. Other posts about how Chiefs played, vis-a-vis Pirates played, and so on, those are not, at least for now, a matter of interest to the Electoral Commission. What is of interest to the Commission is intentional false statement with an intention to influence the outcome of an election. Now, you are right that we won't capture every single one of them because the construction, the architecture of the whole project is largely complaints driven. And we will receive complaints because there's harm created in some quarter. And hopefully because of actual or potential harm, we will get as many of those into the fold and give redress in whichever way it's necessary. But just to emphasize, the intention is not to deal with all tweets and posts, is to deal with those that have a potential, that are based on intentional false statements with a view to influence maliciously the outcome of the electoral process.
On that note, let me thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to the panel from the Electoral Commission. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We're not going to monitor everything.
Break.